Welcome back to Spinning the Past. Today I'm going to talk about twists per inch and how to measure twists per inch, and then basic things of how to get the same twists per inch. So twists per inch refers to, let me just find a spot here that I want to use. Here we go. And this is a marl yarn, so you can see the two different threads. One is a light color, one's a dark color, and you can see it's really easy to see the diagonals. Sometimes those are called bumps, so you can count the bumps. When somebody says count the bumps, this is what they mean. You would count 1, 2, 3, 4. You would count every bump on here. But for TPI on a marl yarn like this is much easier to count because I can actually see which is one strand, which is the other strand. So if I'm in a marl yarn, and I'm going to use my rule of thumb. So I've measured my thumb, and I know from here to here is 1 inch. I already know that. I've measured it many times. So I will put my thumb here, and I'll count the white bumps. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 in an inch for that. So my TPI would be 4 twists per inch. Now with TPI, we're talking about the singles. The TPI in the ply would be double that. So if I counted every bump, this would be 8. And then I would have to take how many plies? This is a 2 ply. It's really easy to see that this is a 2 ply because these are, you can tell that there's 2 different colors. But you may need to unply, what I call untwist. So just go the opposite direction and you can see how it untwists. Then you can count how many plies there are. Really easy. So I have this. So this is 8. Let's say I count 8 bumps. But that's not really my final TPI unless it says 2 ply after it or something like that. But again, I would take, let's say 8 total here. I mean, every diagonal, if I counted every diagonal in 1 inch, there'd be a total of 8 of those bumps. But I have to divide it by the number of plies. In this case, it would be 2. This is a 2 ply. So 8 divided by 2 is 4 twists per inch. And that's what we got. We counted this, the white ones, 2, 2, 2. Yep, and those 2 check out. If this were a 3 ply, let's say this was 9 twists per inch, and I knew it was a 3 ply, then I would take 9 divided by 3, and that's 3 twists per inch. So another thing is that you will, over your yarn, you will have different bits that they look different. And I want to show you. Here's some. So you can see here, this looks different than the part I showed you. And this is, it has a different twist per inch. So 1, 2, this is 3 twists per inch here. Can you see that? 3 twists per inch. I'm counting the white, or you can count the navy as well. And you see how different that fatter, the white yarn stands out versus the thinner navy blue. And that was because when I spun this long time ago, I was just really starting out, that I had more fibers of wool in the white than I did in the navy. So the more fibers, kind of the chunkier that single would be, then the fewer fibers, the thinner that single would be. Also, the white was from a roving, and I've talked about roving versus top several times. And then this, though, was the navy was from top. So if you're mixing top with roving, you can get an inconsistent yarn. So when you are spinning, you're kind of looking to get the same amount of twist per inch. So here's some right in here. Here's a couple right here where this is, these 3 kind of look the same, have this kind of the same number of twists per inch. So that's kind of what you're looking for. Now, wouldn't it be great if the whole skein were that way? And that's what we're aiming for, to improve and get the entire skein to be consistent. A couple things that like I said, are for consistency. One is the same number of fibers per so when you draft, let's say if you're doing, you have the same number of fibers that hit the twist every time. But nobody forward drafts. We don't really forward draft. We might do maybe a 3-inch, 4-inch draft. We maybe do a 12-inch draft. We may do an 18-inch long draft. So to get the same consistency, again, it's the same amount of fibers, but your wheel will also help you that. And for this video, I want to make it clear when I start talking about ratios on the wheel. The twist per inch, when you ply, you will, let's say I have 8 twists per inch. And then when I ply it, I'm actually having a different twist in the single. It's not 4, it's not a direct ratio. I want to be sure that that's clear. When you plying is spinning just in the opposite direction. So when you ply 2 yarns together, 2 singles together, you will get, it will unspin a little bit of the first singles that you did. So you, for a 2-ply yarn, you will get 2/3 of what the singles ply was. So we had to know all these calculations when I did Master Spinner. And I love technical spinning, and I just want to point that out, that it's not a direct ratio. But for the sake of this beginner's video, as I go into my discussion about ratio on the wheels, I want you to try to start getting consistent singles. Consistent singles will help you get consistent plied yarn. It starts in the singles. Plying cannot transform your yarn into consistent 2-ply if it wasn't consistent twist per inch in the singles, just so we're clear on that. The wheel is a twisting machine. It really doesn't do the spinning. The spinning is in the spinner's hands, and the spinner adjusting the tensioning on the wheel and adjusting the ratio. So if this, let's say, is a final twist of 4 twists per inch, and I know I need 6 twists per inch in a single to get a final twist per inch of 4 in applied yarn, then I would look for a ratio of 6. And I know that I did this because I did this on a Traveler, Ashford Traveler, and it only had just the minimum of ratios back then. So this I would have done. I wouldn't have done this on a ratio of 12 twists per inch. That, I mean, in theory you could, but it takes, then you have to change your drafting length and everything like that. But all of these things I want to say, your grist, how many fibers, your wheel ratio, all contribute to your twists per inch. Again, if I want consistency, and I'm hoping that people are watching this are looking for pointers on how to be more consistent, again, the same amount of fiber presented at the point of twist on your wheel gets the same ratio, the same number of twists on your wheel. And then when it's plied, again, it gets the same number of untwist. Because again, plying is slightly untwisting. It's counter spinning, it's counter twisting. Takes a little bit of that, and that these 2 separate singles kind of ply to form a finished yarn. It's kind of technical, but we'll just leave it at that. So I'm just saying that it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you're looking to end with a 4 twists per inch, you wouldn't go to your wheel and say, well, I need a ratio of 4. I don't have a ratio of 4. I will, if people are interested, talk a little bit more about the mathematics that go into that, because you lose 1/3 of your twist when you ply in a 2-ply. I think I'll just leave that there. Like I said, it's just a little bit more mathematical complicated, but even as a beginner, you should be able to get a really nice consistent yarn. And doing a marl yarn is a really good way to practice, because then you actually see what you're doing wrong, what you need to change. This is another beginning marl yarn that I had. And I could see, well, I had way too much here. I didn't control the fiber source very well. I didn't pre-draft this as well. Or this roving drafted easier than this light brown roving. That's why I keep going on about pre-drafting, because as soon as the twist hits the unspun fiber, that is kind of the yarn you're going to end up with. So it's important to set all these up. And it's, again, it's not your wheel, it's the spinner knowing how the wheel works, how ratios work, and what it takes to get a consistent yarn. So I just kind of wanted to show on my beginner's yarn, still practicing, it doesn't matter. What I did when I first started spin is I took about a pound, literally a pound of the cheapest roving I could find, and I just spun. I just, if it could stand together, if it could be together and not disintegrate, I thought that was a success. And I kept at it, and I kept practicing with my draft. And sure, I did short forward draft because I was terrified of doing anything longer. But with practice and doing these kind of marl yarns, then I could kind of see, well, why is it doesn't look like commercial yarn? And that part of that has to do with consistency. Those machines in the mill, they know exactly how many fibers to take out, and then all this is very, very technical. Those machines just pull out the fibers it needs and puts in the exact twist, and then when it's plied. All of this is really meticulously calculated for those machines, but we are the machines. The spinners, we are that, and we can create beautiful yarns, and we can create things that the machines cannot, because we can take out slubs, we can make all kinds of novelty yarns, we can do all kinds of wonderful things, and we have access to wools that the machines don't have access to. Again, spinning is between your hands. You are the one creating the yarn, and the wheels are simply a tool to help you put twist in that yarn. But again, you have got this. You can do this. Practice, practice, practice. Understand twists per inch. Understand how to count the bumps. Understand the ratio between the bumps and then your ratio on your wheel. Understand how to do that. So this is just a brief video today, and I hope that you all understood a little bit better twists per inch. This is real beginners. What is twists per inch and what it means to get a consistent yarn. And with this, I will bid you adieu, and I will see you next time on Spinning the Past.